Hi, everybody. This is Empowering Democracy. I'm your host, Joe Firestone. Of course, the topic of the week, the topic of the day is Israel Palestine and the war that Israel has declared on uh, Hamas and Gaza and the Palestinians, in Gaza. Uh, there are a lot of people analyzing the situation there, pointing out the rights of the Palestinians, particularly pointing out, the right to resist, the Palestinians, which they certainly have. Also pointing out, some people, that it's a human rights violation to target civilians, which the Palestinians, Hamas, is accused, of doing. That is, a human rights violation. But of course, we have to point out that there have been daily human rights violations targeting civilians, all through Palestine on the West Bank, and in Gaza, when the Israeli soldiers have decided to shoot into Gaza, or when they carry out one, by their invasions, there are human rights violations, all the time. So to single out the human rights violations by the Palestinians, while ignoring the human rights violations by the Israelis, of course, is quite unfair. But what I mainly wanted to talk about was not the violations by both sides. I didn't also want to talk about the lead up to this, because many other people are talking about this. But I hadn't seen anybody talking about what is to be done. And to me, that is the biggest issue, because what has been going on in the past is that people, all over the world, will generally lament the oppression of the Palestinians that's going on, in Israel. I shouldn't say all over the world, because, of course, Europeans try to ignore it. And many people here in the United States try to ignore what the Israelis have been doing to the Palestinians, as well. But outside of the collective West, many people have deplored and make statements about the violations of international law, and of human rights, which have been going on in Israel for decades. And of course, there are many people justifiably very angry about the invasion of Gaza and attacks on Gaza now going on. So I didn't think I would add anything by talking about that. And that's why I'm asking the question, what is to be done? I don't know if there are any people here with me to discuss what is to be done. There's Robert Copeland. Hi, Robert. Glad to see you. And Robert says both the Israel government and Hamas should be tried, as war criminals. I wouldn't have any objection to that, but I do want to point out Hamas, both of these aren't really persons. The trials, of war criminals have to be trials, okay, of persons. Uh, and I'm sure there were many people fighting for Hamas that might not have been engaged, okay, in war crimes, but might only have been exercising their right to resist. The people who have enclosed them in an open air prison for what, 16 years now? Something like that, since they closed it off to all transportation going in, okay, or out. Uh, that is certainly a human rights violation of the first order. But what is to be done about this now? Is there going to be, okay, an intervention by the United Nations? Will there be peacekeeping forces that will try to get involved in this? If the UN is not to do anything, will the other nations in the region of the Middle East come together? And if they do come together, what will they do to try to contain Israel? Okay, it seems to me that Israel has already, in the first few days, gotten their vengeance against, okay, the Palestinians. Of course, there are trades to be made. The hostages hopefully will not be killed, but will be held for trade and will eventually be taken home. And maybe there are many Palestinian prisoners that will be let out of jail who are in jail on a completely unjustified basis. And so perhaps we'll see this go on. But just from the point of sheer vengeance, the extremely intense bombings, okay, of Gaza now, and the sealing off of Gaza, the complete siege of Gaza that is going on right now, I know that is not revenge enough for the Israelis themselves. They want to go on and on. I don't know exactly what they want to do in Gaza, how far they will try to go. I don't know if they can go as far as they want to go without getting interventions by some of the regional powers. Hezbollah, for example. Also, Turkey has said that if the United States intervenes, okay, on the side of Israel, which, by the way, the United States is already doing, shipping arms, okay, to Israel, Turkey has said they will intervene, okay, on the side of the Palestinians. Depending on how much intervention occurs from Turkey, that can be a very serious matter. As people should know, but many don't know, for years, the army of Turkey was the largest army, okay, in Europe. It no longer is because the West uh, uh, built up, okay, the Ukrainian army to be the biggest in Europe. It had reached 600,000 by the time, okay, of the invasion, which was 100,000 more than Turkey's standing army of 500,000 men. By reputation, the Turkish army is very capable, very tough, very well trained. Okay, it is a professional military, and they can be expected to fight fairly well. So if they were to intervene on the side of the Palestinians, that might be more than the Israelis are prepared to handle. From a military point of view, we know the Israelis have mobilized something like 350,000 troops for the Gaza effort. If other people should attack them, they can probably mobilize far more people. The Israelis are a nation, in arms. They all get military training. If they're not exempted for religious reasons, they all go into the reserve, and they all get the training, and they all participate in the actions of the Israeli Defense Forces. So the 300 or 350,000 they've just called up do not have to be trained. Robert Copeland says, "Hi, Kay. I've seen a video on X, on Zitter. We call it Zitter around here, by Ryan Knight, where some Israel supporters are calling for everybody in Gaza to be killed, which is genocide. Yes, it is, I think. I think they'll probably content themselves. I don't know what they'll content themselves with. I don't know what's in their heads. I think the people in this government of Israel, certainly some of the people, are just insane. I don't think, Netanyahu is insane. I just think he's a criminal. He's a mafia boss. But I know Israel is going to go pretty far with this intervention, in Gaza. I think it's also going to lose some people because they're going to get into urban warfare, which is very tough. And I think that Hamas, in Gaza, has been recruiting and training people for a long time. And they probably have a much bigger military force than the force, that invaded Israel, which is reputed to be something like 2,500 or so people. So the question is, what is to be done? I don't really have an answer to that question, but I wanted to raise the question, and I wanted to talk about some of the possibilities of what could be done. First of all, the Iranians are reputed to have some nuclear material. I've seen the estimate that they have enough nuclear material, or enough of the material for nuclear bombs, to be able to create 6 nuclear bombs in short order. They may need to do that for their own self-defense in this particular situation, because I think they will want to aid the Palestinians. They feel solidarity with the Palestinians. They're supporters, big supporters, of Hezbollah, which in turn are right now supporters, of Hamas, of the government, of Gaza, the Gaza Strip. So I expect that one thing that might be done is for the Iranians to try to get arms through to Hezbollah, and then for Hezbollah to find some way to supply the people of Gaza with those arms. I think a lot of arming the people of Gaza has already been done. There are rumors, of course, that many of the weapons that were to be sent to Zelensky, okay, in Ukraine, actually ended up in the hands of insurgents around the world, including Hamas. We don't know how much of this got to Hamas, but there might be a good deal of it. It may explain how Hamas had the capability but to attack Israel, okay, in the first place. Okay, if Hamas carefully planned, okay, that attack, they must have carefully planned for the response, okay, to Israel, because they must have planned, okay, that Israel would do one of its incursions or a very large invasion, okay. In other words, the Israel incursion into Gaza going on now should not have been a surprise, okay, to Hamas. So they must have had some plans to counter it. And so I wonder what those plans are. I wonder what we'll be seeing, okay, over the next few days in terms of severe pushback by the Palestinians against the Israeli invaders. Okay. If you're going to engage in an urban war with 2.4 million people, it may take you weeks or months to settle the war. If you're mobilizing 300,000 troops to do the invasion and to carry on the fighting there, then I'm sure Israel is very clear that they have to put together plans to counter the likely interventions, okay, of Hezbollah, perhaps some interventions by Syria. They may decide now is the time to strike, to try to get back, okay, the Golan Heights. There may be pushback from Egypt because if the Israelis try to push the Palestinians out, okay, of Gaza, which I believe they're likely to do to some degree, where can they push them to? The answer is they can push them into the Sinai Desert, which right now is Egypt. They'll try to get, the Egyptians to let them in and to take care of them. But reports are that the Egyptians don't want to have anything to do with the Palestinians. Hey, Steve, glad to see you. So, what will Egypt do to counter that? will it consider the Israelis pushing Palestinians into Egypt, okay, as something that they will be able to tolerate? Will they maintain friendly relations with Israel? Or will this be a severe interruption of the peace that exists between Egypt, okay, and Israel? This is a very serious issue. I don't see any discussion of it, okay, in Israeli politics. Okay, but Israel has been warning the Palestinians, telling them to go somewhere else, get out of Gaza. But where can they go? The Israelis won't let them go out to sea. They have a blockade on. I think the Israelis would only let them go into the desert, which means the Israelis would let them go into Egypt. And then again, will the Egyptians take care of them? If they take care of them, what will they do to take care of them? Will they ask the Israelis to help to underwrite the financial burden of taking care, okay, of the Palestinians? Will they be setting up refugee camps, okay, in the desert again? What will happen? How will the external world respond to the expulsion of Palestinians from Gaza? There are 2.3 million of them there. Will the Israelis attempt to expel them? Or will the Israelis just attempt to kill them? I don't know, but 2.3 million Palestinians is an awful lot of people to kill. And the longer the murders go on, the more likely it is that international forces will insist on a ceasefire, backed by most of the nations in the world. There'll be great pressure on the United States. Great pressure, okay, on the United States to cease its intervention on the side of Israel. I don't know whether we will do. The Biden, Blinken, Jake Sullivan, and Newland foreign policy team is very stubborn and very arrogant. And they may continue the intervention in support of Israel to the very end. What I'm afraid of is what will the end be? And in terms of the what is to be done topic, what is to be done to diffuse the possibility of expanded war? What is to be done to give some justice to the Palestinians? What is to be done to ease their situation? What is to be done to make citizens of Israel secure, okay, again? Should anything be done to allow the settlers to remain secure? I don't personally think anything should be done to make them secure, because they don't belong there in the first place. Their settlements are in violation, okay, of international law. Robert Copeland asks, what will Iran do as they hate Israel? Steve Wolfman says, Robert, that's the big question. I've already started to answer that. I've said I think, okay, that Iran is going to try to send in arms to relieve the pressure on the Palestinians, to give them a greater capability to fight. I don't know if that's really going to relieve pressure on them. It would probably relieve pressure on them. Steve says Gaza is the world's biggest concentration camp. Yes, it's an open air concentration camp. So, if the Iranians want to relieve pressure, they would have to do something to attack Israel. That might be very costly for them to do if they don't yet have the nuclear capability. Have to raise the question, how are the Russians going to respond to chaos in the Middle East? I have a feeling they'd respond with a very, very big offensive inside of Ukraine. There's already news that shipments of arms that were intended for Ukraine have been diverted to Israel, and specifically to the task of attacking the Palestinians in Gaza. That, of course, weakens the support for Ukraine. That in itself tempts the Russians to start their big counteroffensive, which so many in Russia have been urging on Putin, and which he has been resisting. Why has he been resisting it? Well, the military and he have not wanted any big arrow offenses. What they wanted to do was to slowly demilitarize the army, in Ukraine, which they're doing through the war of attrition. Some people estimate now that 500,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed since the start of the war. Some people estimate that as many as 100,000 have been killed since the start of the counteroffensive. Certainly, a long war in Israel would distract the attention of U.S. decision makers from Ukraine and cause them to want to settle things there fast so they can be free to turn to Israel. Some of the military experts who have talked on this subject doubt the capability of the United States at this juncture of our history to fight a two-front war. We have claimed, of course, that we could fight one in our various warlike statements. But the facts on the ground in the supply operation to Ukraine suggest that we're not capable any longer of fighting a two-front war, because our factories to do so are not present. Steve Wolfbrand says, my father's outfit liberated Buchenwald concentration camp. He would not be happy about this if he was still alive. Let us move to the United Nations. Certainly, Antonio Guterres is very disturbed at all the violence and all the fatalities in Israel that are coming about as a result of the resistance by the Palestinians. He wants a ceasefire. He's going to try to organize all the nations of the UN to insist on a ceasefire on grounds that there are war crimes and human rights violations by both sides. So he'll call for that, most probably. But will he take the next step and organize nations in resistance by calling for troop contributions that would be under the command of the UN to intervene, to actually put a presence on the ground? I don't really expect that it will happen. The United States and its allies will use their vetoes in the Security Council to stop the Security Council from doing anything. And I don't know whether the General Assembly will be angry enough to act in place of the Security Council, in this instance. We may still be far from that. But meanwhile, it looks like there'll be at least hundreds of Palestinians killed, every day. That from here on out, most of the casualties will be among Palestinian civilians and Israeli soldiers. How heavy those casualties will be, I don't know. But if it's urban warfare that's going to occur in Gaza, which of course we think will happen, then that's where the casualties from now on will be concentrated. I don't think the casualties will be equal for both sides. I think with the preponderance of military equipment the Israelis have, there will be many more civilian casualties, in Gaza. I'm sure I know how the Israelis feel about this. They probably feel good riddance. But of course, the rest of the world sees war crimes, and with good reason. So over time, this is going to escalate the crisis, even further. When I ask what is to be done, I need to refer specifically to the United States. What should we do? I'll give my opinion. Some of you may or may not agree with it. And my opinion is that we should not be assisting Israel. We should cut off assistance to Israel. Let them and the Palestinians inside of Gaza work this out between themselves. Let the decision makers in Israel see the consequences, of their actions for them. Let the citizens of Israel feel the weight of the mistakes that have been made by the current government and by Netanyahu specifically. Maybe this will motivate people to finally do something. The international community has let this fester for decades. It should not have been festering. The Israelis should not have been allowed to occupy for so long. There should have been a UN effort during the 1970s to end the occupation right then and there. to come to a settlement with, okay, the Israelis. There should have been a Palestinian state declared, certainly in the West Bank, but during the 1970s, they should have been led into the UN so they could deal with Israel in the context of the UN on equal terms, specifically nation, okay, to nation. That would have resulted in a far better situation than they have now. But people all over the world let the situation fester. They allowed the continuing oppression of the Palestinians. And now we have this. It has to end. There's only one way to do it. I think the world as a body has to intervene here and create a framework for peace, a new security framework. That is the most urgent of things that have to be done in this situation, beginning with a ceasefire. I think we know that probably the Israelis will resist a ceasefire for a number of days until they feel they've killed enough of the Palestinians and enough of the leadership, okay, of the Hamas government to undermine it inside, okay, of Gaza, to make it dysfunctional, non-functional, to create chaos in Gaza before they agree to a ceasefire. Steve says best coverage of this is Sabi, Do Dissidents, Richard Medhurst, Convo Couch, Jimmy Dore, and a few others. Yeah, okay. I saw the coverage from Pasta, okay, on Jimmy Dore's show. Okay, I thought, okay, it was really very good. I thought Savvy's coverage, okay, was very good. But Steve, I don't see people addressing the question of what is to be done in this particular situation. That question has to be addressed. It's one thing to place the blame for this all on Israel. That, okay, is easy enough. Some people inside of Israel are already doing that. Certainly, Haaretz has been frank in its assessment of what has been going on. Okay, but the issue is not what has been done. It is what is to be done. And who is talking about that? I haven't seen anybody else talk about that. That's what we are talking about now. I think the nations have to come together through the vehicle of the General Assembly, okay, of the UN. I think the General Assembly needs to take action. They need to demand, okay, a ceasefire. To give it teeth, they may have to move armed forces, okay, into position. I don't know whether anybody is up for that, but I think that's what should be done. I think the Chinese need to be a part of this. I think Iran needs to be a part of this. I think Russia needs to be a part of this. I think Saudi needs to be, okay, a part of this. They have to make it clear that they back, okay, the Palestinians. I think Egypt has to be part of this. There has to be an international effort to stop the Israelis from slaughtering the Palestinians. I'm persuaded that that will happen. How long it will take, I don't know. How many Palestinians have to die? Okay, I don't know. I don't even know what the capability of Israel is to continue to prosecute, okay, an urban war, okay, against the Palestinians in Gaza for any length of time. I know Netanyahu has asked the Israeli people to prepare for a long war. That is ambiguous and vague. What does that mean? I haven't heard people give intelligence estimates of how many troops the Israelis can raise for this war. I don't know what the stocks of ammunition that Israel has are, okay, at this point. I suspect that probably Brian Berletic is talking about issues like this, and maybe Scott Ritter as well, maybe Colonel McGregor as well. But I haven't had a chance to watch those folks today. And I don't know whether, well, my guess is that the first estimates on this would probably come, okay, from the Brian Berletic show. So I'll be checking that out, okay, very soon. But I'll bet he's getting some idea of what the capabilities are for Israel to fight a war against the Palestinians in Gaza for any length of time. So Netanyahu may be calling for a long war, but whether he has the capacity for a long war, I don't know. He has mobilized 300,000 troops, presumably to raid Gaza. Now, presumably to conquer Gaza. Maybe he's thinking of conquest. Maybe 300,000 troops aren't enough to conquer a city of 2.3 million, but of course, they have the city under siege. No food, no water, and no fuel. So how long can the Palestinians hold out under those conditions? Maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. Not necessarily a very long war. So I raise the question again. What is to be done? What are your ideas on what is to be done? To be clear, my idea is intervention going through the United Nations, if possible, of a number of nations around the world, most probably led by Saudi and led by China. Forcing a ceasefire on, okay, the Israelis. Forcing them to withdraw, okay, from Gaza. We'll just have to see, okay, if it comes soon. I hope, okay, it does. So I'll take your proposals now for what is to be done. if you would like to offer them. I'll give you a few minutes to put together some suggestions. So, Steve says things are going to get very ugly. Yes, Steve, but what is to be done? What is to be done about them getting ugly? What is to be done about them? What is to be done about stopping them from getting very ugly and developing a creative solution to this problem that gives the Palestinians a new framework to operate in? Certainly, statements from one of the presidential candidates have not been helpful. April says, just when we had a sliver of hope under the Kennedy independent announcement. Did you think the Kennedy independent announcement, or that after that announcement, his statement, on Israel, offered a sliver of hope? I asked that question, April, because I think that his statement on the war following his announcement was just as disgusting as his original statement in support of the Israeli position, which is months ago now. But I agree. Let us stump Israel. They are a nuclear power. They should be able to protect themselves. I would like to see them try to do it. If we were neutral in this situation, they would have to come to terms with the Palestinians and Hamas, and we might be some progress. We might see some progress here at long last. Will the Biden administration do that? I don't think so, because of the political repercussions here. As usual, politics here will probably prevent a constructive response to a severe international problem. Hello, Lana. Glad to see you. Robert points out, as long as weapons are going to Israel from the United States, as long as that continues, Israel will continue to make life a hell for the people in Palestine. Yes, Robert, I think that's true. Okay, but I have to add, what I have to add is that I don't know how long we can continue to ship weapons to Israel We have the same problem there that we have, okay, with respect, okay, to Ukraine. We have a shortage of 155 millimeter, okay, artillery shells. We don't have a great capacity to produce those. We cannot compete with the Russians as a center for the production of those. So I don't know how long we can keep on shipping arms to Israel. And certainly we have to leave. We have to settle up in Ukraine, even to free ourselves to continue to ship some arms to Israel. Robert says, hi, Lana. April says, I think what he says concerning Israel is major ass kissing. They're all disgusting. Steve Wolfbrand says, hi, Lana. Kay says, hi, Lana. April says, I was just hoping West would be his VP. That West could be, okay, his VP. I think we can talk about that tomorrow night when I'll be evaluating Robert F. Kennedy's, RFK Jr.'s candidacy for the President of the United States, including his campaign, including his policies. Lana says, hi, Robert Steve K. Lana says, Matt Waldy was saying we are short of weapons. I've been saying that too, Lana. And we are short of weapons. April says, kids crying. Excuse me. Okay, any more comments? Okay, it was interesting. We had many weapons stored, okay, in Israel. And we shipped, okay, a lot, okay, of those weapons we shipped, okay, a lot of those weapons to Ukraine, which is one of the reasons why Israel is short, okay, of weapons. So Lana says Chicago Corner had some good coverage as well. Jerry Veselatis and Ed Heller. Did they say anything about what is to be done? April Mono says, come on, E.T. Where the hell are you? E.T.'s, where the hell are you? And Steve Wolfbrand says, smash the like button. Solana, did Jerry and Ed have anything to say about what is to be done? Lana says, I flipped out of the live stream to come over here, so I probably missed it. Well, thank you, Lana. Okay, but I have to add, I doubt that they will cover what is to be done, because I think everybody is busy condemning Israel. As Steve says above, the world needs to condemn Israel. Okay, well, yes, it does. But I think the alternative media here in the United States, okay, and internationally, have to start thinking about what is to be done and have to start saying what is to be done to meet this particular crisis. It's not enough for everyone to feel virtuous because they're um, condemning Israel. I think Israel has a tremendous capacity to resist the opinions of other nations. Lana says, I think Ed Heller is also Jewish. Well, that's certainly a Jewish name. And he was definitely condemning Israel. He is now using the phrase Nazi. Well, as you may know, I've suggested that the Israelis have been acting like Nazis. Robert Copeland says we have local politicians supporting Israel. Yeah, I know. They think it's still the 1970s. Steve Wolfbrand says we need ET disclosure. They are here. Yes, we do need ET disclosure. Absolutely. Full disclosure of ETs. But I don't know that ET disclosure is what we need in order to do something for the Israel-Palestine war that we are currently seeing. Well, I see the discussion has slowed down somewhat, so what I'm going to do at this point is talk about tomorrow night. So you remember last Friday on my show, I offered various criteria for how to evaluate the candidates. April says ETs can stop the Armageddon. They have quantum technology. Sure, but what kind of quantum technology do they have? Lana says he and Jerry also said the right-wing Christians don't actually care about Israel. That's true. They only support it. They only support Israel because they believe in the second coming of Jesus, and that's true too. So, what they're interested in is causing what they believe will be the final conflict. So they've got that right now. Robert Copeland says, what are the chances that this could start World War III? I think the chances are good that this could start it. It all depends, in part, on whether the Israelis are backed into a corner. It's really very delicate here. The rest of the world has to stop this war. It has to put enough pressure on Israel that Israel feels it has to settle something with the Palestinians. But it cannot back Israel into a total corner so that Israel believes its existence is threatened, because then Israel will use its warheads, which are reputed to be somewhere between 200 and 400 warheads. They have more warheads than anybody except for the United States and Russia and maybe China. Lana says we already have Russia, Ukraine, now Israel, Palestine. I hope these will end soon. So do I. Steve Wolfbrand says, the F Israel. Yes, but uh, unfortunately, we cannot F Israel too badly because they have those nukes, those nukes. And this regime in Israel, this government in Israel, is likely to use them because it is really an aggressive and nutty government without principle, as you have characterized it. Okay, it's a Nazi government. It's very like, okay, a Nazi government where the Arabs, the Palestinian Arabs, are playing the role, okay, of the Jews. It is like that. I'm just getting a message. Oh, that's not a very nice message from my son, which I will not read out loud. Anyway, we can't F Israel too badly. If we could use some of our vaunted regime change methods on Israel, that would probably be, okay, a very good thing. But we also have to recognize that the Netanyahu has been put in there by the strange workings of the Israeli political system. He was democratically put in this place. But it is essential to displace him now. Maybe that is something that could be done. Offer Netanyahu political asylum to stop the coming trials, okay, in Israel, and offer him a whole ton of money if he'll resign and leave. And make his government fall. Maybe that's the solution to all this. But we don't know if his successors would do anything different. The Israelis are used to replying to Palestinian attacks with overwhelming force and horrific revenge. They've forgotten the old adage, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. They are the leading perpetrators of vengeance in the world. And that is a very bad sign for the Palestinians. April says ET's quarks can penetrate warheads and vaporize nuclear weapons. Laugh out loud. Okay, just dreaming. Several years ago, there was a report that they had control of our nuclear weapons, stopped them from being used. Well, that would be good. We better hope they can stop the Israeli weapons, okay, from being used. Because if they can do that, then the other nations can probably force a reasonable settlement through overwhelming superiority in conventional weapons. But the Israelis will be very tough even if only conventional weapons are being used. They have great capability in conventional warfare. So I think we're just going to have to see. But anyway, I wanted to focus you on the question, okay, of what is to be done. Well, thank you for coming, Kay. Kay is leaving, says, okay, guys, I'm out of here for tonight. Okay, love you all. I wanted to focus you on the question, okay, of what is to be done. Because what is to be done is a very, very essential question that, from where I sit, nobody is talking about yet. The more intelligent people are just reporting on what is happening, okay, in Gaza and relating the situation as it shapes up. That is very valuable. That's what's going on, okay, at the Duran right now. And that is also what's going on with some other streamers. Brandy's here, says, sorry I am late. Thank you for coming, Brandy. What we have been discussing here is the question of what is to be done in relation to Israel Palestine now. What is to be done by the rest of the world to stop the violence, stop the conflict, get a ceasefire, force negotiations to be started to settle the problem, to end the occupation, to develop a new security framework. We've been talking about that. I've given some opinions. I hope I've gotten some of the rest of you thinking about what kinds of things have to happen to make that a reality. Robert Copeland says ET can stop our nuclear weapons from being used. Also, there was a report that ET started a countdown of their nuclear weapons. I'm not sure what you mean by a countdown. That if something isn't settled by a particular time, they'll use their own nuclear weapons. Steve says the future is yet to be seen, Doc. We're all worried. There's not much we can do. I don't know. I think contributing to international opinion, okay, and getting other nations mobilized may be able to do a lot, but we'll have to see. Robert Copeland says that was in Russia. Old Hippie says put the pressure on Israel to end apartheid, but end it or no aid. Yeah, we've already suggested that the United States should put a stop to all help to Israel, okay, until this is over. Okay. And Brandy says, well, until countries start holding Israel accountable and stop funding them, nothing will change without a war that we do not want. I agree, Brandy. And it's not simply countries, mainly or primarily. It's the United States, mainly or primarily. So, yeah, that is what has to happen. And Brandy says, Arab nations are going to Gaza. Brandy, please be more specific. What have the Arab nations said they are going to do? Brandy says, let me find the article. Please, Brandy, find that article. Okay, anybody else have a comment? If not, then I will say the following. Tomorrow night will be an important night here because we're going to go through the candidacy of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We're going to compare the candidacies of Cornel West and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I'm going to tell you what I think. I've already told you here that I think that Robert F. Kennedy's statement, okay, on the war was very, very badly constructed. And I think that weighs on any comparison between he, and Cornel West. I also think a lot of factors come into play when talking about, his candidacy. There are four main areas, at least, in which he is lacking, from my point of view. First, of course, is his Israel stance. Second is his stance when it comes to Medicare for all. The third is his evident complete ignorance, of MMT, and how to use it. And fourth is his statements on how to handle the climate crisis, and specifically the need to use capitalism, the free market, to handle the climate crisis. So those are four factors that will enter into the evaluation. Some people related to RFK Jr. don't want him to run. Oh, thank you, Brandy. Don't want him to run for president as they don't like his politics. Yes, I know. I read the article. His family members, his siblings, four of his siblings and children, of his siblings, don't like his politics, don't want him to run for president. All I have to say about that, though, is that the siblings that were named in that article, if we're thinking about the same article, were siblings who are establishment Democrats. They're all, establishment Democrats, which to me means they have no credibility at all. I don't care what their opinion is, because the last thing we need is more actions that are approved by establishment Democrats. And Brandy says, there is no way I will vote for him due to his stance, on Israel. Well, again, we're going to talk about that, tomorrow night, Brandy. I appreciate your comment, and we'll talk about it in more detail tomorrow night. But for now, I think I'm going to say good night and end this stream. Thank you all for coming. Hopefully, I will see you and many others tomorrow for what I think will be an important stream. Anyway, good night, everybody.